Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's about
Yeah,
Gee.
I think those bars are a little.
We're streaming live now, so Chair Bercuda, if you would like to take it away.
Yeah, I'd like to call to order the Public Safety Committee meeting for February 23rd, 2021. Call it to order. I'd like to ask, let's see, Captain Millard, would you mind doing the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Sure.
Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice
for all. Good job, Rod.
Yeah.
You're the man, Rod.
Very good. Now we got a roll call going. Adam.
Okay. Where do we start here? Subcommittee member, or excuse me, committee member Leffler.
Here.
Committee member Walsh.
Here.
Vice Chair Janis.
Here.
Chair Bercuda.
Good.
Okay. Committee member Malat.
Here.
And committee member Manhart.
Here.
Okay. And committee member Capobianco has not joined us yet. We'll see if he pops up soon enough.
Good job. Okay. Well, we call for the regular orders of business, and we got a presentation. Adam, will you introduce, please?
Yes, this is item 4A. It's a presentation by Jesse Mund with Flock Safety related to a camera system that he will go into more detail with. If you give me just 1 second, I'm going to go ahead and share the screen for his presentation. And I'm going to go with that one.
Welcome, Mr. Munn.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here today. Hello from San Diego. It's been a gorgeous couple of days, so pretty excited. But had a brief discussion with the city and with Nick about Flock, and really wanted to present some insight into who and what Flock Safety is and why it could be a good partnership solution for the city. So I'm going to try and keep it to about 15 to 20 minutes, but really, you can go to the next slide, please. Talk about a little bit of how Flock has democratized LPR, and that is kind of tied in with the Flock story. Spend a bit of time talking about how and why Flock is different. License plate recognition technology has been around for about 15 years. However, Flock is very, very different from the other solutions that have been available in the past. Talk a little bit about success and what it looks like, and then really wrap up with the important questions around investment and costs, and then spend some time answering any questions you might have. So next slide, please. I think it's important to start with the mission and the story, right? So Flock, like most startup companies, has a goal. We wanted to solve a problem. And that problem started in 2017 with package theft and neighborhood burglaries to the founder and CEO's neighbors back in the Atlanta metro area. Great ring footage of a gentleman coming up and stealing packages, getting into his blue sedan and driving away. Taking that ring footage to law enforcement, the Atlanta Police Department, them recognizing the vehicle, great image of the gentleman saying, hey, it's great stuff. We just don't have anything actionable to find out who this gentleman is or to track him down. So their recommendation was the neighborhood invest in license plate reader technology to capture all the vehicles coming in and out of their neighborhood. That way they would be able to track that individual through his license plate information. So Garrett did just that. He's 32 years old at this point, fresh off his second tech company that he had sold. So he's definitely one of those guys, very tech savvy, and got some very, very expensive quotes. And in addition to the price of just the technology, there's a lot of cost that goes along with that from an infrastructure standpoint. You often have to trench electricity. You've got to figure out a solution for wireless. Is it LTE or Cat6, or where's this data going to store, and all those different components. So there's a lot of problems he had to solve. And that's really where Flock came from, was how do we solve this license plate recognition need that neighborhoods and businesses have? It's long been a solution and tool for law enforcement, but really, how can we solve that solution for HOAs and private businesses? Next slide, please. And here's the reality. I mean, we're seeing across the country, challenges, budgets are tight. They're tight in the best of times, and now is definitely not the best of times. And we're also unfortunately seeing, crime rates tick up, and community members are asking for solutions. Well, how do we, and what can we provide that's going to provide a fast ROI that has a minimal risk, and that can be done on a budget? So, that's kind of where we're at today. If we could go to the next slide, please. And Flock in the last year has continued to expand as trying to fulfill those needs of cities across the country. Even though we started in 2017, we already have relationships with over 1,000 cities with our private LPR cameras, and over 500 law enforcement relationships with agencies across this country. In addition, just from a technology standpoint, when we first came to Southern California at the very end of 2018, one of our first test agencies was the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, and they did an evaluation of our technology compared to some of their legacy technology. Their determination was a side-by-side comparison over the course of 6 days. Our reads were 30% more accurate. So we'll talk more about the technology, but it's kind of good to get a background of, yes, we are a fairly young company, but we're not new to this. We've done this quite well. We are nationwide. We're in 39 states at this point and rapidly expanding. Next slide, please. First, we're going to talk about differences. And at the beginning, I had talked immediately about LPR has been around for a while. However, Flock is very different. And I like to point this out first because it's one of the most significant differences, right? So Flock is a service. It is not asking the communities that we provide solutions to spend a lot of money on hardware, cameras, infrastructure, IT security, et cetera. So this data is 100% owned by our customers. We have no right to sell or monetize it in any ways. And our default status around the country is to delete that data on day 31, to really help with the public image of this data is not being utilized to track or to do anything to follow the public around. In addition, we start talking about what it doesn't do, right? It captures the rear of a vehicle as it's driving away, which is objective. It does not do anything in regards to traffic enforcement. It has no tools for facial recognition. And I think most importantly, these are still images. There is no way to log in and look at a live feed of a Flock camera. So it's a motion activated camera that takes images as vehicles are driving away, capturing the objective evidence and providing that information if needed to law enforcement. And then finally, it complies with the laws of California to make sure it can be audited and tracked from a law enforcement perspective. Next slide, please. Next, we'll talk a little bit about the three big differences, right? From a technology and a company standpoint. We talked about our privacy difference. That's just how we view the company and the industry. We can have privacy, we can have technology for law enforcement, and we can do them both at the same time. Now we're going to talk about why Flock is different from a product and from a technology, and how we are a solution for an entire community. Starting with the infrastructure side. If you can go to the next slide, please. You're used to seeing cameras on traffic signals on the horizontal bar. What you're not used to seeing is these nice little Flock safety cameras. They are infrastructure free. I like to show the camera. As you can see, there is an infrared array. It's about 10.5 inches tall, about 4.5 inches wide, and about 4 inches deep. Infrastructure free because we 99% of the time in Southern California deploy these with solar. So there is no need to tap city infrastructure, and it is 100% cloud-based through LTE. So it's a really easy to deploy solution. Next slide, please. What does that look like? So general places where you're used to seeing cameras, Flock can go, right? They can go on your traffic signals right here in the middle. They can go on light poles if you own those city assets. They can go on decorative poles. So, you know, city of Huntington Beach, put them by their beach entrance and exits to the parking lot. Places where you haven't thought about putting these cameras, you know, even Flock can put a pole in the ground if needed, and put a 14-foot pole in the ground with a solar panel on top and put the camera there. It is designed as an infrastructure-free solution. So I point these out just to show that we're more limited on where, we're not really limited on where they can go. We're more limited on how much sun there is. And in Southern California, that's not a problem at all. So next slide, please. Going in from deployability to the technology itself. And now we're going to talk about just why the technology is different. Traditional LPR requires a license plate to be useful, right? So Flock, and I explain it the best, is imagine a deputy standing out on the corner, taking a picture of every car that drives by. And then Flock's machine vision looks at that picture and says, that is a silver Toyota Coupe, and it has a Texas license plate, and here's the license plate information. It's not getting information from the DMV. It's not cross-referencing databases. It is cataloging what that camera sees when it sees it. Next slide, please. So good example of the machine learning is on the right side, you have the nighttime image of a Flock camera. As you can see, it's very specialized. It's very hyper-focused on the license plate, but our machine learning captures and recognizes the pattern of the light schema of the vehicle, so it can make a very good analysis of what type of vehicle it sees even at nighttime. Next slide, please. What does that do from a technology standpoint, though, right? Temporary plates are paper. They're non-reflective. They've been traditionally a long and hard problem for any LPR camera, especially because criminals are smart. They take their tags off. They put paper plates over the top of their original plates. They switch plates out with stolen plates. So keep clicking through here. You got a couple different options. So Flock is now hemping with temporary plates. Keep clicking. There you go. Solutions where there is no plate on the vehicle. Keep going. Covered plates. State detection, very important. And finally, to make this even more democratized and affordable, traditional LPR has been known to capture one lane of traffic, where Flock can now capture 2 lanes of traffic with one camera, effectively doubling the coverage for your cameras simply by an improvement of the technology itself. So all of those are technology challenges that traditional LPR has had that have been solved with Flock technology. Next one, please. A couple of quick examples of where Flock has been extremely useful. So the city of Dayton, Ohio, common theme throughout the country, right? Crime was going up, budgets were going down. They were looking for a fast return on investment on a solution they could get started with quickly. Next slide, please. They strategically placed about 29 cameras through a particular part of town, in a region of town, to help them keep more eyes on the street at any given time. The citizens were demanding action. Next slide, please. After 6 months of having the cameras in place, they compared their Part 1 crimes to the same 6 months for the previous 3 years, and they had seen a 46% reduction in violent crime. Next slide, please. But I like to highlight something else. And I know you all are experienced public safety professionals, and I'm sure you can all attest to when you put in a technology solution in the public safety realm, those generally take a long time to where they're effective, right? 6 months, 12 months, a year, 18 months, even sometimes. With this agreement in Wichita, Kansas, they signed their pilot program with Flock in September. They had 106 cameras up by November 5th. And from November 5th to the end till December 4th, they had recovered 53 stolen vehicles, had returned $500,000 in property back to their constituents, and helped solve significant Part 1 crimes throughout the city. So from September to December, they already got an immediate return on investment from deploying the Flock solution. Next slide, please. That's not where it stops, though, right? It's really how do we re-educate and communicate with the public on how Flock positively impacts the community. Technology can be used, it can be extremely effective and positive, right? So last year alone, Flock was covered by local news over 500 times. And I know Mr. Bercuda had seen it, but the OC Register just did article about Flock in the city of Stanton, another contract city with Orange County, you know, talking about the benefits and what Flock has done to the city of Stanton. So next slide, please. But it goes even beyond that, right? So we have a whole team devoted to PR, public outreach, community engagement. We've done such events with Lake Forest, discussing the program with the public, communicating what it does, and the constituents are excited. And what I want to highlight here one more time is any one of your community members can buy these for their HOA. They can buy them for their shopping centers, their private businesses, and if they so choose, can provide access to the network of cameras that would be monitored by the OCSD. So it really can become a network of cameras throughout the community and a public safety initiative for the city. Next slide, please. Now, I generally at this point ask, and generally it's well known, this is typically very expensive, right? Investment proposals, I've sold government tech for years and it's expensive. And if anything drew me to this company, it's this. Next slide, please. It's designed for cities. It's designed to be cost effective. It's designed to be easy to deploy. It's designed to be easy to budget for. The cost structure is very, very simple. It's $2,500 per camera per year. That includes whether we're mounting with solar or DC power. Now you do see the highlight down there. We do not provide electrical services. So if the city does elect to wire in the cameras, we will hang the cameras with a junction box where your electrician can come in and run power to it. So it includes all of your LTE connectivity. So there's no separate account you need to set up for SIM cards or anything. All of your cloud hosting, our standard retention is 30 days. However, you'll note on the bottom, we do have an option where it is required to have data stored longer at an option of $300 per camera per year out to 1 year. So very simple cost structure. Anyone on this phone could put together a quote with exactly what you're going to get from me anytime you want. Next one, please. And a little bit about deployment, because we've changed the industry, right? You used to think about LPR as capturing an intersection, capturing 2 intersections, because it was traditionally very expensive. A lot of infrastructure, a lot of time. Next slide, please. Flock has changed how we think about using these. And really, we want to think about getting the cameras positioned well. And I think the overarching thought process is if there's a crime in a vehicle in the city of San Clemente, the first solution is, have you checked Flock? And you'll see a lot of good puns from law enforcement. Did you flock it? Have you flocked it? Did you check Flock? And really, if it becomes the go-to and you've got the cameras positioned in the right locations and the right amount, it's very hard to not have some relationship with a Flock camera at some point in time. So there's a breadth of things that we can do to facilitate and help with that and provide services to accomplish that. And then I believe I got one last slide. Next slide, please. And this is what my process looks like. Talking about strategy of the camera placement. With that, we kind of got to know how many cameras we're talking. And then we work through kind of some camera locations, getting through and working through procurement to get the finals, and then coming to make sure all the locations we looked at and worked at are going to work, and then install the camera. So that being said, that's the end of the presentation. Next slide. I will open it up for questions.
Nick, I believe you are muted.
There you go. How's that?
Perfect.
Much better. Jesse, in a recent editorial by OC Register dated February 11th, they cited the Stanton installations.
Mhm.
And part of their things is worrying about smoothing the concerns about civil liberties. People are yelling and screaming, or they propose that they be yelling and screaming about somebody watching them coming and going throughout the city. And does that, are we into that? Are we into the Big Brother thing, or is it something else? Can you address that, please?
Sure. So there's a couple things that we do very differently. Number one, there's no live feed for a Flock camera. They're not being monitored in any way, shape, or form. It does two things. It compares it to a state list from the California DOJ to let you know if that license plate is stolen, or let you know if that license plate is a felony or wanted vehicle. That will notify law enforcement of that vehicle and get them that information within 20 to 30 seconds. So if that vehicle is coming into town, it will notify law enforcement. And then it becomes a searchable record for 30 days in the event of a law enforcement investigation. They can then search specific criteria to find what they may be looking for at a specific place and time, but it is not a live feed or footage. And it has, and every agency, including the OCSD, has a vibrant LPR use policy that does get audited, and they're responsible for tracking the use cases throughout the system. I'm sure Captain Manhart can speak to that if he needs.
Right. And then on top of that, you mentioned that you don't have any facial recognition software in there.
Correct.
Is there any chance that that might be applicable in the future?
No, we are an object recognition tool. We are not a facial recognition tool or a human identifying characteristic tool. Is it possible for a human to be captured by a camera? It's possible, but remember, these cameras are aimed to the middle of an intersection or middle of traffic, and there's no defining characteristic to search for people. So it would just simply show you a person, and you would have nothing else beyond that.
Okay. Is there any downside on having the Flock system?
I mean, honestly, I think we've taken a lot of the risk out of trying Flock, being that it is a subscription. It is not a long-term commitment. So if the city tries it for a year and does not see the results they planned or want to see, they are free to not renew, and we will come and pick up the cameras. In addition, beyond our 100% law enforcement retention so far as a company, we also have what we call our satisfaction guarantee, where at any point in time throughout the contract, if let's say 2 months in, you say, hey, this doesn't work, we need to get rid of Flock, whatever reason, for a fee, we will come pick up the cameras and cancel the contract.
Gotcha. Good. Okay. Any other questions going on?
Yeah. Hi, Jesse.
Hi, sir.
That was nice, nice presentation. You said they were solar powered,
Correct.
and they have ability to be hardwired.
Correct.
Okay, so being San Clemente, we have maybe 6 weeks a year, we don't have a bunch of sun. So on those days that we won't have any service unless we hardwire them, is that correct?
You really shouldn't need to. I mean, we've had the cameras live in Southern California for 18 months and have had 0 outages due to solar. So even on days where there's cloud coverage, they really only need an hour or 2 of sunlight, and they don't even need it every single day to stay charged. The other component is how busy the road is. If it's a very busy road, let's say we're talking more than 30,000 original vehicles a day, you may consider wiring it in just due to volume. But in most situations where you're talking 8, 10, 12, 15,000 cars a day, hasn't been an issue.
So if we put it on one of our neighborhood light standards, that would see the cars going by, and if it was at night and they couldn't pick up the license number, at least we get the type of car that it is.
You should be able to get the license number. You know, is there a potential scenario where they didn't have the rear license plate light? It was pitch black and there was a non-reflective plate. I mean, is it possible it misses it? Yes, but the capture rate even at night is in the 96, 97 percentile of capturing a license plate at nighttime.
Yeah, you know, we had an incident just the other night, and Ed knows about this, and kudos to all your sheriffs that handled that, Ed. It was pretty good police work, I thought. But anyhow, someone stole my catalytic converter out of my work truck at 2:30 in the morning, and they happened to park right across the street. So our ring camera, you know, saw the car pull up. We didn't see anything else, and 2 minutes later, and on the ring camera, you could hear a pretty loud sound of the saw. So in the morning, I started the truck, and sure enough, I knew my catalytic converter was gone by the sound that we had. And so there was a blade that was left there, and we looked at the ring camera and saw it. So I got home from work and notified the sheriffs, and boy, within an hour, the deputy was at my house and collected the information, and I hear they already made an arrest. So, I mean, it was absolutely great on our sheriff's department, no doubt. But if that didn't have the ring, I mean, they would have got them without the ring, but I didn't have a license plate. And if the deputies, you know, weren't around at the time and didn't catch the guy, then are you saying that would have showed the license plate and that would have helped us make the arrest?
Yeah, exactly. So if they caught him going in or out of your community, your ring camera caught a timestamp, and did it get a vehicle image, or did it just?
Yeah, a vehicle image and a timestamp, man.
So, I mean, from that, he could, you know, Captain Manhart could go search for that gray Ford truck that was in the neighborhood at that time and get the license plate from the Flock camera.
Yeah.
That's exactly the design.
All
Yep.
right. Yeah, once again, Ed, you guys were great, man.
Thanks, man.
See any other questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. I was wondering, when you referred to the 46% decrease in crime in that one area, you attributed that just to the deterrent factor? Is that what I understand, you know, that how you use them in investigations, just like Joe just said, but when you talk about 46% decrease in crime, means that the crimes didn't ever happen. So is it the deterrent factor?
So it's always a combination of things, you know, and as Captain Manhart will say and agree with, it's a small group that commits the vast majority of crimes. And if Flock can help facilitate getting those people off the street, crime will drop. So it's not any one thing. Obviously, without our great law enforcement, Flock is completely useless. But it can be a very significant tool to help generate leads when there are none, to help watch the streets when the deputies aren't there, and to help generate leads on cases that would typically be cold. So, and another element of that Dayton crime report, of their crime analysis, is, you know, 50% of their law enforcement homicides that happen in a year, they are using Flock in some way, shape, or form to help clear the case. So it has a very powerful back-end investigatory tool, especially when you combine that with other resources that law enforcement has.
Okay, and what percentage of cities opt for the hardwire option?
Very few.
Is it more like, say, in Huntington Beach, where they have Beach Boulevard and they need a lot of cameras or whatever? Is that when you would hardwire it?
No, of the almost 600 cameras we have in Southern California, there's probably 10 that are wired.
Oh, okay. So even in a busy street like in Huntington on Beach, if you have multiple cameras, and with all that traffic, it seems to be able to keep up with the demand.
Yeah, like I said, our threshold, when I start to look at it, it's about 30,000 original vehicles per day, which is not that many streets when you really break it down. The solar power can handle it pretty well. There's been a couple that we wired in more out of kind of speed issues and how fast they're going up in San Jacinto and Hemet, right there on the Ramona Expressway. They wanted those wired in just because they're going so fast, and it's basically the camera's always on at that point.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Adam, it looks like at this point, what's our next step on looking toward a recommendation?
Well, I'll leave that up to the committee's determination, but you know, at this point, the committee can either decide to agendize something for the next meeting, and that would be essentially the creation of what I would recommend is that it be a staff report of some kind with a resolution formalizing the recommendation to the city council to further look into this. The amount of information that you provide to the council is entirely up to the committee. But you know, in terms of any lingering research that may need to be done that the committee could do, I would recommend that be accomplished first.
Yeah, my question is, who does the analysis of recommendation for locations, number of cameras? Is that done with Flock and OCSD? Who? Because I know the city staff could certainly have some recommendations in general, but I don't think that anybody has the expertise that would be able to really do a involved study about where we need the cameras, how many we would need to be effective. So who's in charge of that?
So it really is, like you said, a combination. We have experts on staff that could help, map out the city. And we have done a preliminary evaluation of San Clemente. Fortunately or unfortunately, it generally comes down to how many is the city willing to procure to, on a phase 1 or a test or a pilot, and then look at it more as an expansion, right? Very few cities are like, oh, well, we're just going to go all in and put in 60 cameras. They want to start with 20 or 10 or 30 or whatever, strategically deploy them in a certain part. And then after they see how effective they are, then they say, okay, well, here's phase 2 and phase 3.
And that's what I was going to say. Would you be able to put together the information where you would have like a 20 camera recommendation, a 40 camera, and a 60, something like that? Sure. Could you do something like that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I can work with Captain Manhart on that for sure.
Yeah, that's my suggestion. I think maybe one or two of us should get together with Captain Manhart before we make any decisions right now. I need to know a little bit about what he thinks about and how it's going to affect their guys and stuff like that. Then we're going to get into the problem with the budget. We have hard budget times here in San Clemente like every place else. So we don't want to make any big recommendations that we know are going to pass anyhow. So maybe, Nick, you're pretty well into this, and I don't know, Gary, if you would like to get together and talk with Nick, because I don't want to throw a bunch of work on our staff. They're kind of booked right now. So that's my suggestion.
Well, I'm not sure our city staff is going to be all that involved with it. It sounds like that Flock's done a lot of work with it already, and in correlation with Captain Manhart and OCSD. And just in general, I don't think we should be worrying about the budget when we make a recommendation. I think we should be making recommendations based on public safety. If the council decides to do it, great. If they don't decide to do it, that's if we start worrying about that, then we might not be making any recommendations, because we know we don't have money for most things. But I think when we have a priority like this, where we already know, and I'm going to defer to Captain Manhart in a second here, we already know what his feelings are. And I think actually now's a good time for Captain Manhart to speak to this, how much he thinks this is important to the city. And then maybe we can go ahead and, like I say, without too much work on the city and maybe a couple of our members, Captain Manhart and Flock working together, I think they can probably come up with a recommendation. But with that, I'll defer to our captain here.
Points well taken.
Let me talk just in general. My two peers in the city of Lake Forest and Stanton, they're contract cities, and they stood up the system recently. And I can tell you that immediately, I believe in Stanton, the first day they had several occupied stolen vehicles, which Jesse had mentioned about career criminals that are doing stuff in the city. And then I talked to Lake Forest. They have, I believe, I might be wrong, 10 or so cameras, and they're on arterial roadways. And there's one in the park, but they are getting a lot of criminals in it, and it's a fantastic tool. I think it was Nick or Joe, somebody asked about what was the downside. The downside that I've heard about the system, and I'll be honest with you, is the request to have more cameras, because the more cameras we have, the more information that we receive. Therefore, we go after the criminals. And being the deputies that are in the car where the system is hooked up, without getting too into the weeds here, the deputies are notified immediately that there is a stolen vehicle or criminal vehicle in this area right now. And so when the deputies are out patrolling, it is a fantastic tool. And so I am absolutely supportive of it. I understand. I mean, budget issues and constraints with buying technology is always going to be, and I understand that. But every once in a while, there's technology that comes down the pipeline, and I'm absolutely all in on this, and I think it's a great tool. And as soon as you stand that up, I mean, my partners in the other two contract cities can provide stats of who's being arrested and that kind of stuff immediately. And so it's not like, hey, are these things running? Are they really working? Because and I'll do you one better, that if we stood this up, no matter how many cameras we have, I would be happy to provide that information monthly or however you guys wanted it, to say, hey, listen, by the way, just on these cameras alone, this is what we were able to accomplish. It's a great tool for law enforcement purposes. I'm absolutely all for it.
Yeah, even before this committee was put together, I know in conversations with Captain Manhart, he thought this would be, of any tools that we could come up with, this would be have the major effect on our city, would be cameras. Further conversation, and I know Nick, it's been important, Nick brought this up from the beginning. I know Gary's really busy with the homeless subcommittee, and I don't want to speak for him. If I would be happy to step in with Nick on this particular thing, unless Gary has a particular desire to do it. I know one of us, or Joe or anybody, but I mean, I'm ready to make a motion, and the motion would be that we direct Flock, Captain Manhart, or whoever he designates, and 2 members of our committee with coordination with Adam, to study the feasibility of the Flock camera system in San Clemente and come up with proposals for the city council.
I second the motion.
That doesn't sound bad to me either, Yeah.
So I say.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, the only caveat would be who the 2 members from this committee would be. I know Nick, I think probably would certainly be the obvious choice, and whoever wants to do it. Again, I'll defer to anybody, but then I'll also volunteer if nobody has any particular feelings for it.
Yeah.
I think since you have the enthusiasm for jumping in on it, I'm all for letting you do it.
Okay. All right, then Adam, if you can put part of the motion that Nick and I would be part of that little fact-finding committee there.
And are you going to make this a pilot program then, Rick? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, I think that's
That's
come up with a proposal.
Yeah, I think if the proposal got accepted by the state, I'm not sure that Flock does pilot studies, or I don't want to speak for Jesse, but I'm not sure that they bring cameras in and have us look at them and see if we like them. I think we pretty much are going by the information that we see from his presentation, and then the experience that maybe that Captain Manhart has. Am I wrong on that, Jesse?
Correct. So we can do a 1-year agreement, which many cities will call a pilot. For a minimal investment, you can try it for a year and determine if it fits the city's needs. At any point during that time frame, you have the option of canceling for a small fee, or what San Jacinto did was try 10 and add 13 in 6 weeks, because they were so effective, they immediately expanded. And that's generally been the course is you're in a little bit different spot being that you have several of your sister cities that already use Flock. So the kind of the proof point and the validation of does it work is already there. The OCSD has accepted the technology. They've made some internal adjustments to accommodate Flock. And, I think that a lot of the risk has gone out of trying Flock for a year at this point. So yeah, unfortunately, we generally only do a no fee pilot in areas where we have no recognition whatsoever as a company.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think I see this little subcommittee is putting together a proposal just to give to the city council that would be clear as far as numbers, costs, and all that, and effectiveness, and then the city council does what they do.
Right. Okay, I'll second it, and I'll also volunteer to be on that subcommittee also. So, Adam, so we got a motion and a second.
Okay, so I just want to restate the motion just so we're all clear. The motion is to have two members of the committee work with Mr. Mund and Captain Manhart and myself in terms of any coordination needed to develop a pilot program proposal that the subcommittee could then, that the committee could then take and incorporate into the recommendation, a potential forthcoming recommendation to the city council. Does that sound adequate? Okay.
That's exactly what I meant to say.
Perfect. So then,
Adam, just
we
point
may want to talk about timing, because if this is something that could get done in time for the next meeting, then we could simply agendize it for kind of a global decision on next steps. If that,
Captain Manhart, you think we could do that in the next 3 weeks? What we need to do?
Absolutely. Yep.
I think we can, and if Mr. Mund agrees, then I think we're good to go.
Okay, a point of order here is understanding this is the procedural one is we'll come back to our next meeting with a recommendation, agendized recommendation, or we'll bring it up for possible recommendation to the city council. Is that the procedure on it?
yes, that is correct. So the two committee members that are working on this would present a recommendation to the committee as a whole about whether to forward a committee recommendation to the city council.
Got it. Okay, that works.
Okay, so I will take, let me take a roll call on this vote. Committee member Leffler.
Aye.
Committee member Walsh.
Aye.
Vice Chair Janis.
Aye.
And Chair Bercuda. All right, that passes 4-0. Are there any other questions of Mr. Mund while we still have him, or further discussion on this item?
I want to thank you for the presentation. So it's I think we can go. We made some significant progress so far. Thank you. Yes.
My pleasure. And without further questions, I will let you get to your regular order of business.
Thank you so much. All right. We'll be in touch.
Yeah, please reach out when it's time to schedule that meeting. And in the interim, I will begin working with my team to look at what a deployment would look like for the entire city of San Clemente.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right. You have a presentation by the manager of the code Compliance Park Rangers, Adam.
Thank you, Chair Bercuda. Adam Matamian, Manager of Code Compliance in the Park Rangers. So I wanted to give a presentation on all of the staff that I oversee. However, due to some technical difficulties with PowerPoint, I'm not able to provide one of my slideshows related to code compliance. So I'm going to push that off to another day and just talk about the park rangers at this time. However, before I begin, I will give a general overview of what my division does and what we deal with. So the Code Compliance Division is located within the Community Development Department. This is one of 3 divisions. The other 2 divisions are the Building Division, which issues building permits, oversees construction, those types of activities, and the Planning Division, which deals with discretionary projects, long-range planning, things like the city's general plan, etc. The Code Compliance Division classically was charged with enforcing the regulations on private property. As of late, there's been an expansion of that into public right-of-way and certain public property. However, with the park rangers, a lot of that work has now been able to be transferred to them as they are the enforcement authority over public property, at parks, public right-of-way, and those kinds of places. So I'm going to share my screen again. Let's see if I can get this one done. Let's see. Okay. Try that one. All right. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to go into our staffing a little bit more, but I wanted to start off with a discussion about kind of what are the things that the park rangers do. So, as I mentioned, the park rangers deal with public property, and that can be in the form of a city park, a portion of the beaches that the city oversees. It could be certain areas of public right-of-way, certain parking lots. The idea here is that they're associated with the city's public facilities. So we don't deal with public right-of-way, which would be like sidewalks in a lot of areas. We don't have authority to deal with a lot of those areas. But of the areas that we do work to oversee, per month, we tend to address about 950 violations, which could be anything. It could be people on the premises after hours. It could be people improperly using facilities for whatever reason, either damaging public property. It could be people drinking alcohol where they're not allowed, dogs off leash, any of those kinds of issues. Essentially, the park rangers have the authority to address any type of violation identified in the municipal code on these types of properties. In addition to that, the park rangers do a lot of patrolling. I'll get into more of the number of parks that we deal with, but in an average month, there are about 2,600 specific patrols that the park rangers do. Most of these are the city's parks and particular areas of the beaches that need specialized enforcement. We issue about 60 citations at this time. Most of these are parking citations. We are working on training to enhance the types of violations that we can address through ticket writing. And I will go over a little bit more of that later. Additionally, we work with CityNet on during a few times of the week when CityNet is working. We were working with Mercy House when they were more involved, and we do outreach specifically for homeless, and that involves the offering of services, the coordinating of the meetings between CityNet and people that we find that are without housing, whether they're new or they've been around for a while. We specifically address about 25 complaints a month, and those are lodged generally directly to the rangers themselves, by the members of the public, or they are they're submitted on our online complaint portal. And as well as enforcement, we also keep our eye out for any maintenance issues that may impact the public, and we'll report those to city staff as necessary. So right now we have 6 park rangers. One of them is in the role of the lead park ranger, and the other 5 are just park rangers. These positions are they were holdovers from what used to be called the park monitors of the Beaches, Parks and Recreation Division, Beaches, Parks and Recreation Department. In 2019, at the beginning of the 2020 fiscal year, the park ranger program was transferred to code compliance in an effort to coordinate our enforcement efforts in a few specific types of issues affecting the public right-of-way and public property, as well as to provide an opportunity to better train the existing staff and enhance their abilities to enforce codes. At this time, the lead park ranger is that's a benefited part-time position, and the other 5 are unbenefited part-time positions. So right now, we are not budgeted to have any staff consistently working, or I should say, they need to average out to 30 hours a week. Some of the duties, as I mentioned, consist of patrolling, parking enforcement. We do a lot of education with the public. We do deal with issues such as vandalism, maintenance. Right now, we're not dealing so much with special event permits or park rentals. That is something that can take up a lot of Saturdays and Sundays. It completely went away when COVID began. That will come back online eventually. For right now, that's not a major part of our work, only because there are very few special event permits or park rentals. But we also deal with illegal activity and other municipal code violations. So we have 28 city parks under our charge. There's approximately 2 miles of beach from North Beach down to Lost Winds. We also oversee some enforcement occurring on the city's other facility sites, such as the community center, the senior center, the Old Hanson Beach Club, and those kinds. All right, so in terms of enforcement, I want to be clear about this. I've recognized in some public comments that the information that people have about the level of enforcement with park rangers could use some clarification. So what I will tell you is that there are 3 levels of enforcement that the park rangers are currently capable of using. The first is, or I should say providing. The first is parking enforcement. These are parking tickets. We average about 3 to 5 citations per night. This is something that all of the park rangers can do. And we have all of them that are doing this trained for to provide the service. The second are administrative citations. Whereas a parking ticket is issued to a car, an administrative citation is issued to a person, and that requires a little bit of extra training, certification, and experience. We have 2 staff right now that are completing training to provide administrative citations. One can do this currently, but we're trying to increase the number of people that can. These administrative citations are going to be issued to people that are like drinking on the beach when they shouldn't be, smoking in areas when they shouldn't be, those kinds of park usage violations. And then the third level that the park rangers have access to are to issue misdemeanor citations. And right now we have one park ranger, that's the lead park ranger, that has issued misdemeanor citations for certain major impacts to certain major violations that result in impacts to the public right of way and the public safety. Our training program got somewhat interrupted when COVID began. We were in the process of scheduling people for various training and certificate programs. Most of those opportunities went away when COVID hit. As soon as things started opening up again, we perceive a time when, in the near future, when the Rangers are, many more of them will have an opportunity to issue administrative or misdemeanor citations. In addition to all of this enforcement work, the Rangers also open and close 15 restrooms at parks and beaches, along with various gates, generally a little bit more east of, in the city due to vandalism. We are providing these services generally from 4:30 a.m. Until about 1 a.m., though those 1 a.m. shifts, they end when our work is done. And so sometimes it can go later, much later than 1 a.m. But we have typically 3 shifts a day. The first morning shift, most of that work is simply opening restrooms. The middle of the day shift is a patrol patrols type shift, and the night shifts, and I'll say shifts because we double up at night, is that's for patrols and also to close certain facilities. One of the larger functions of the park rangers of recent months has been in the night shift. We one of the last things we do is we deal with certain beach areas, and we ensure that the public has removed themselves from these beach areas. In some cases, we work with OCSD to do this. In many cases, we're able to take care of this work on our own. All right, and so that is the end of my presentation. So I will stop there. If anybody has any questions about the park rangers, I'm more than happy to answer those.
I've got a couple on that last slide. On the weekend shifts, it said 4:30 a.m. to 1 a.m. Should have that been 4:30 a.m. to 1 p.m.?
Oh, no, you're correct. On that first shift, no, you're right. That should be 1 p.m. Yeah.
Okay, and how many park rangers totally do we have?
We have 6 positions. 1 lead park ranger and 5 park rangers.
Okay, and is the reason that they're all part-time is because the benefits package of the city would be too much if they were full-time?
So I think there's a number of reasons, but as I mentioned, these positions were a conversion of the old park monitor positions. And there was a desire for some park specific enforcement. And so we found it an easier thing to take the park monitors and improve their abilities so that they could do some of this enforcement rather than create a bunch of new positions that were not currently staffed, and then not only have to, go through the training people of what to do, but also the whole hiring process of such. COVID has had an impact on our ability to request enhancements to these positions. One of the first documents that I provided for the committee in these meetings was a public safety update that was part of the both the 2019 and 2020 fiscal year budgets, and it included a discussion of what code compliance and the park rangers have been working on, and a discussion about some potential opportunities to change their current makeup, their current level of pay, number of hours, that kind of thing. One thing we were able to do over the last year, because they used to be limited to 20, or I should say 18 and a half hours per week on average, was we were able to obtain an exemption from CalPERS related to their the fact that they are they identified as public safety personnel. So now they can work up to 30 hours each, and we're hoping in the future to be able to provide some additional enhancements, but that will be up to the council.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay.
We're good.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Adam, for that presentation.
Adam, I was going to say, because I don't remember, let me look real quick at my notes here, that the, maybe as of note, under your authority, the new homeless liaison coordinator, homeless outreach coordinator will be under you also, right?
Yes, that looks to be the direction that this is going. That's the word that I've received. And that position will be working with code compliance and the park rangers pretty frequently.
Good. Is there any other questions? Okay, we can go to point 5 point. Minutes from the special Public Safety Committee meeting of January 26, 2021.
I move that we accept the minutes from the January 26th meeting.
Second.
Okay, let's see. Committee member Leffler.
Aye.
Committee member Walsh.
Aye.
Vice Chair Janis.
Aye.
And Chair Bercuda. You were muted. Was that an aye?
Yes, it's an aye. I'm sorry.
That passes 4-0. Okay.
That gets us down to oral and written communications. Adam, you're up again.
Can we move on and come back to this in just a second? I've got, I'm having a little difficulty logging into the system where I can see those. And I haven't seen anything, but if anything's come in recently, I just want to confirm that we haven't received anything in the last hour or so.
Okay. Then we go to 7, which is reviews and recommendations. Contract police services performance measures for fiscal year 2022 second quarter. Anything on
Numbers, before we begin on all of these performance measures, I will say that I received the OCSD performance measure numbers today, and I have not forwarded that on to the committee. The timing of when we get these performance measures, or that we require our various divisions to report these numbers, I believe it's a little bit later than the committee was anticipating when we created the work plan. And so in the work plan, we identified February as one of the months where we would discuss the quarterly reporting. However, the performance measures technically aren't due to the city until like the end of this month. So what we can do is we can postpone the discussion, any discussion about the Orange County Sheriff's Department's numbers until the next meeting, and I'll provide those to the committee beforehand. But in the future, if it's always up to the wire on these particular meetings, I think I'll recommend to the committee that we move the review back 1 month so that there's more time to put all this stuff together, because this took a bit of time for me at the end of the week and over the weekend to put this information together. So we have everything but the police services numbers. And so if as a whole, if everybody would like to talk about anything else that came from that, I'll leave it up to the committee at this point.
Well, I move that we table this agenda item and move it to our next regular meeting in March, and that we also, for future review of these measures, that we make them reviewable at the March meetings in the future.
Second it.
Okay, so there's a motion. I'm going to clarify. I don't remember the exact months off the top of my head for when the quarterly performance measures are reviewed. But for example, we identified February to review the performance measures from September to December. So the work plan would say for the performance measures of January through March that we would review those in May. So if I believe what your motion is that all of the quarterly performance months, or the months where we review the quarterly performance measures, we move all.
Be pushed back 1 month.
Okay,
all.
that makes sense. Okay, so with that, committee member Leffler.
Aye.
Committee member Walsh.
Aye.
Vice Chair Janis.
Aye.
And Chair Bercuda.
Aye.
Okay.
Now, I have a question for you, Adam. If you review, referring to item number 7, reviews and recommendations, it all has fiscal year 2022 second quarter on them. Are we?
I was optimistic. That should be 2021.
Okay.
We're in the budget process for the 21-22 year, and I got used to writing that everywhere. So I will correct that for the next meeting.
Oh, good. Thank you. No, no, we want to get involved in reviewing performance measures for all of these groups here, because I looked at the data that you sent out, Adam, on these reports, and that's a slug of information. And I ended up having to cut and paste like a good thing, just to, so I can understand from one year to the next all the way across. And I'm not sure if I can analyze them properly myself at this point. So that's something else that we need to look at is what does this actually mean? So we'll have another chance, right?
Yeah, we'll have this item at the next meeting, and keep in mind that one of the primary duties of the Public Safety Committee is to review performance measures, and the committee talked about it a little bit last year before we started getting into the work plan, but the work plan for this year is more it's more geared to developing an understanding, like almost a common language about the performance measures, and not so much about what each number actually means. Because there's like, as you mentioned, there's a context to all of this information. And as an advisory body to the council, I think it's more important to look at all of this information and just identify whether, how that it's as useful as we need it to be in order to evaluate the performance of these various public safety and related groups.
I totally agree. Plus, if the city council had a chance to ask us a question to clarify it, I'd like to know more about it than they would at this point. So it's just getting through the definitions of the different facets on the workloads and all. It'd be important for me. Anybody else have a question or a suggestion or comment on that?
No, I agree. There's a lot of information, and having another month to look at it would certainly be beneficial. And also, is there a way? I know what Nick was talking about, cutting and pasting, because you have one page of stats, and then you have to compare it to another page. Is there any way to that could be put together with more clarity, assimilated with more clarity, so it was easier to compare?
I don't know, but I know what you're talking about. All of the performance measures that I provided that are the historical numbers over the last 10 or actually 12 years, all of those, that information is contained, and it's available to the public on the city's website for our annual budget. I'm not sure if everybody still has the original like spreadsheet documents from each year that they worked on. So assuming, or I should say, hoping that we do, I'll work with some administrative staff to see if we can get that information put together in a better format. One thing I will say is that it can be a little bit difficult because performance measures can change over time. And I'll use the code compliance and park ranger divisions to demonstrate that. There have been a lot of changes to our performance measures over the last few years. The numbers that we used to report were reflective of a time when the code compliance division did a different kind of work. Things have evolved in our line of work, including things like taking on the park ranger program. And so for the last 2 years, all of their numbers, which were never reported before, are now included in ours. So one spreadsheet that has all of our data for the last 12 years is going to have a lot of columns and rows that do not provide consistent information from beginning to end. So it may take some time to sort all that out, but let me see what I can put together before the next meeting.
Right. I have an example of what Adam just said. Up until 2011, the performance measures were heavy on weed abatement and graffiti. And then at 2011, they dropped that entirely and went into other types of performance measures. So, I mean, like I said, I was cutting and pasting on these things too, and I ran into that particular item. So it's interesting trying to compare apples and apples from one year to the other. It's they change rules halfway through sometimes, which is not unlike government.
Mhm.
Yeah. So very good. Okay, so we'll put the performance measure thing off till next. All right. Now we got into item number 8, which is new business.
Before we move on to item 8, if we could go back and close out item number 5 for oral communication.
Oh, got it. Okay.
No, item 6 for oral communications.
Right.
We have not received any communications from the public to be read at this meeting.
Got it. So that clears that one off, right? Very good. So now we've got establishment of meeting time and location for regular meetings and the public safety. Before we do that, Adam, what's the latest on in-person meetings?
Oh, sorry, Adam. I thought I was on mute.
Comment on that. Oh.
It's the latest is that it seems like we're not going to be opening these kinds of meetings up to the public anytime soon. I have not heard anything about any particular dates or any time frame. I would assume that these meetings are going to be held via Zoom for at least another 4 months or more.
Okay. Should we give the city council the lead on that if they want to start that stuff, and then, or should we take the lead and show them how it's done?
They are taking the lead. As far as I'm aware, all of the other types of meetings in the city are not up to each individual group to decide whether they want to meet in public or not. I believe the direction is going to would come from the city council as to who can hold meetings in any type of open public forum.
Got it.
Other than Zoom.
Well, that's the answer that I needed on that. So we'll just wait for the city council to give direction on that.
Well, I have a question. I mean, the city councils, well, they almost met in person. They came close except for a glitch, but they're meeting without public access. So it's not open to the public. They're not open to the public either. And I would assume when we start meeting, we wouldn't have to be open to the public. But so are you saying that you've gotten some indication from the city manager that everything but city council meetings are going to be on Zoom for an extended time?
I haven't heard anything directly or specifically. This is just the information that I've received in various ways. I think one of the issues is that the type of city council meeting that was planned for last week, that required a lot of staff time. And for this type of committee that has been able to demonstrate a pretty good working history over Zoom, I don't know that the resources are going to be I'm operating under the idea that we're going to be doing this via Zoom until I hear differently. And the last thing I heard was that there has been no direction to have these meetings opened up outside of Zoom yet. If and when I hear something, I will let everybody know.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay, let's proceed on 8A, establishment of the, you got, Adam, you want to address 8A?
Yes. So this is just a resolution to formalize a decision that the committee has already voted on. But consistent with how meeting times and dates are established for other committees and commissions, there is a resolution to do so. The resolution simply reiterates what the committee decided, which was to have the meetings on the fourth Tuesday of each month at 3 p.m. As noted, they are being held by a Zoom, but we make that note when we publish the agenda. So staff is recommending that the Public Safety Committee adopt resolution PSC 21-001 to formalize this meeting date and time.
Do we just need to second that?
No, well, that somebody will have to make a motion and a second, and you should read the title block of the resolution. For
Okay.
that. If you'd like, I could read the title block, and you could, just for simplicity's sake, I'll read the title block, and you could just say that.
Yeah.
Melodies.
Okay. So resolution number PSC 21-001, a resolution of the Public Safety Committee of the City of San Clemente, California, establishing the meeting time and location for all regular meetings of the Public Safety Committee.
I move that we do that.
Got it.
Can I second that?
Very eloquent, Rick, very eloquent.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so that's a motion by Committee Member Leffler. That was a second by Vice Chair Janis. Okay. Committee Member Leffler?
Aye.
Committee Member Walsh?
Aye.
Vice Chair Janis?
Aye.
And Chair Bercuda.
Aye.
And that passes 4-0.
Good job.
So while we're talking about meetings, one note, I will be on vacation March 23rd, so I will not be here. I will find another staff person to assist during the meeting, but if there's and I'll try to get the agenda out ahead of time. But if there's anything else that the committee would like before the meeting, let me know. My last day before in the office before that meeting will be the council meeting day of Tuesday, March 16th.
How long will you be gone?
About a week and a half.
Okay.
Adam, is this a good place to bring up those 3 items that I had forwarded to you?
You know what? Let's go over. I think during item 10, during your reports.
Okay.
Yeah, during a committee report, you can bring up any items you'd like to discuss at that time. All right. So as far as item 9 goes, unfinished business, I'll hand it off to Chair Bercuda. You have item A.
Got it. I hope you all received a committee report on the major disaster communications. I read a little thing last week, and I think I got the point across, but I think in this document that I had Adam send out, it reads, and I'll read it because somebody may be listening on the phone. Currently, the city of San Clemente radio communication services are provided by the County of Orange, which includes law enforcement, fire services, paramedic, lifeguard, public works, and other governmental operations. Complementing the county's radio system is our locally authorized radio amateur civilian emergency services, also known as RACES. This program consists of federally licensed community volunteers who provide their time and resources as a viable alternative communication resource for governmental authorities. This network of radio operators is able to provide alternate channels of communications, especially during an interruption of conventional forms of telecommunications. That's the background. The discussion is, during a major natural or man-made disaster resulting in a general shutdown of normal communication services, including telephone and the internet, the city's ability to rapidly summon essential life-saving resources to quickly identify problem locations or to initiate a coordinated disaster response would be severely degraded. Currently, our city's designated disaster communications backup, RACES, lacks access to city-owned locations and proper authorization, which are both needed to install radio transmitters and receivers necessary to give our city a resilient emergency disaster radio communications network. Therefore, the recommendation is that the Public Safety Committee takes steps to, 1, evaluate the city's current disaster radio communication system, 2, identify the amount of additional radio transmitter receiver sites needed to provide proper radio and data transmission coverage, 3, identify permissions necessary to utilize those sites, 4, identify opportunities for budget financing for equipment and maintenance, and 5, identify city resources necessary to exercise and drill the system in coordination with the city and county disaster services. That's my written report. Are there any questions regarding this item?
Hey, Nick, I have a question.
Surely.
Will there be a vetting process for the members of RACES?
Well, it's strictly a volunteer group, and they're already established, and it'll be under Stephen Foster, who made that presentation last month, because he's a disaster preparedness fellow, and he's anxious to get more involved in this. It's the ham radio group. The local one is Tri-Cities RACES, which includes I think Capistrano and Dana Point, along with San Clemente. So the group's already more or less established. It needs to be more involved, and the city needs to provide them with sites, access to areas that they can use to provide these transmitters and receivers that will give us, that will give them better coverage during the total collapse of communications in the city. I hope that makes sense to you.
Yeah, the idea makes sense. I guess my question is regarding passing Homeland Security test. We're enabling and trusting people that are outside of the world of law enforcement and fire services and stuff with a vital communication service. So that my question is, who will be vetting these people to ensure that who's going to be running these services and will have access to disaster communications within the city?
Right. My understanding is that through Stephen Foster's office, they'll be vetting them through that way. And also during a major disaster type thing, they would be, since the county radios would be down, they would be kind of riding along with the fire department and or the sheriff's department, park rangers and those to get communications, mobile communications. And also there's a good chance that they can do video on that too. But as far as security and vetting, they'd be married with the law enforcement and public safety.
Yeah, Nick, what came out of that meeting, as I remember also, as I was asking the same questions, was they're just augmenting what we already have. This is if something happened to where police and fire and city communications went down, they would step in to offer some communications, but they won't have access to any 800 megahertz frequencies or any of the encrypted frequencies whatsoever. They would just be an augmentation if our emergency radio services went down.
Right. Yeah. And instead of just being flat-footed with no communications at all, other than passing a piece of paper from one person to the other, this fills that gap. But as far as Gary's concern about the individuals that will be involved in this, they got to be vetted. They're licensed by the FCC, which doesn't mean that they're don't have a background. But I know as far as the city, when they get involved with the city's not going to allow just anybody to pick up and come on in.
I have a question for Captain Manhart. Have you been involved in other areas with this?
Nope. We're just connected, I know, with Rob on the 800 megahertz system. So we have not been involved in any other agencies that don't have the capabilities. And when I worked up at ECB as a department commander, if any other agencies wanted to somehow get integrated with our system, they would have to go through ECB, through the county. I know there was talks with the Marine Corps base, Camp Pendleton, and so we have the ability to patch our networks together to do that. But as far as non-800 megahertz systems, I don't know of anybody that is doing that.
So the only time I've been involved with this, when I worked another lifetime ago at the fire department, I think you all remember 2000K when we were all worried about the computers. We had worried about all the computers crashing. We had an EOC that met and everything. Yep. So that's the only experience I had with that. And I guess my question is, how difficult would it be for fire and sheriff and our city EOC coordinator to mesh this all together? There's going to be a lot of moving parts, and I think there's, I went through the presentation a couple of weeks ago with Ed, and there was a lot of good things the guy had said, but we didn't talk with Stephen Foster about all the moving parts that it's going to take to get this connected. And Gary bringing up the vetting thing, I didn't even think about that as one of them. So yeah, so I still have a lot of questions about it, and I think Nick knows more about this than I do. So, but maybe we should talk with Stephen Foster a little bit more to see how this is all going to mesh together.
Well, and I know, so one of the hard parts, Nick, part of LASD, you have an entire command control system that's up there, but it's different hardware compared to ours, but they work together at using, I don't know how to do it, but they patch the communications together. And instead of buying all kinds of new hardware, there are software programs that allow that to be done. So that might be another avenue to go down instead of investing in hardware, is to work on how that could be accomplished.
The term is interoperability.
Right.
Talking from one agency to the other. Orange County's done quite an extensive thing because they they run the entire radio system for all the cities and the county services in the county, and they maintain the equipment and all. So they're a lot better off than LA County is, because each agency has their own little fiefdom going on.
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
under the LA County or Orange County, it's all under the sheriff's department basically.
Yep.
And they can control the whole thing. The interoperability with other agencies, but when the chips are down, and they have Orange County has a very resilient program, but there's always a chance that the microwave towers tilt. We have hackers get in and shut the whole thing down. There's all sorts of things. This allows us, this RACES system, disaster communications, if we have it available and can support it, it'll give a fallback. So it allows us to communicate outside of, within and outside the community, to other communities that have the RACES system, which is actually worldwide too. They can talk to everybody in the country. The RACES system background was developed to do this type of work in World War II. And the feds got involved in it and licensed these operators to help out. So it's a system that's been around for a long, long time. And all I'm trying to do here is to utilize it and make it available to the city, and especially on an emergency basis. It's low incident, high risk things you gotta think about, and this is one that's there. Plus, most of the equipment and the people involved and all that are all volunteers, and very low cost. The problem is getting authorizations to go into city sites to hook up their transmitters and receivers. Basically, that's it. And then actually practice it on a routine basis. And that's where Stephen Foster comes in too.
Nick, I'm not questioning whether this might be valuable to our city. I'm just trying to figure out how exactly it's going to work. So say big earthquake and we lose communications with Big Orange County. It's probably my belief that the Sheriff's Department and the Fire Authority have a backup plan for that already. So I'm trying to see how they feel about us, imposing a system onto them. Will that mesh with what they do? So, for instance, Lieutenant Manhart, when you guys have a major communications breakdown, what happens?
So you have the up at San Diego Canyon, which is our ECB center. Everybody's up there. And so if we have major breakdowns, we already have agreements with other agencies that if for example, Anaheim PD's command and control breaks down, that there are other agencies that will move in and have the ability to immediately transfer and receive calls and do that kind of thing. So there are many plans in place that we already have agreements, contractual agreements, to make sure that equipment is working. So when you're talking about a separate system, in order for that to work, you're going to have to meet with the county on that, because this is a county communications thing. It's just not a sheriff's department, because we're with fire. OCFR is with it too. That we're going to have to get together, and you're going to have a proposal of how we want to integrate this program, and then see, number one, and then number two is are we able to do that? And then they might. I'm not a technical guy, but they might say you need this type of equipment to make it work. And so I am absolutely not the right person to answer those technical questions on how to do it. But you have many questions, and I could put you in contact with the people that can help provide that. But it is going to be very complicated.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what happens. Okay, so I'm more familiar with the fire side and I know up in LA County Fire. we would actually practice with it, and it actually happened every now and then that we have a communications breakdown. We go to what's called a battalion-centered command. Chief Bianco, Cabby Bianco, do you guys do something similar to that, or?
Yeah, so we do something similar. It's called our MEOG, Major Emergency Operation Plan. Typically, we practice this every 6 months. So we have a decentralized command post. It's based out of our divisions. Really, where we use it anytime that we have an earthquake at all, we set off our pagers and kind of use it as our training. So decentralized, it's based out of the divisions, and then based on the different failures with the trunked or the repeated frequencies, all the way down to a line of sight type of communications, non-repeated. Once again, it goes to a decentralized dispatch. Everything's handled outside of our command center. So we do have those plans in place. The other thing that we actually had an incident about maybe 8-9 months ago, where we suddenly had a failure of our entire radio system, the whole 800 megahertz radio system for Orange County Fire. And what we did was we have a plan where we swapped over to our VHF radio. So we actually swapped over to that, and we're still able to continue our operations using VHF. So we also do carry that ability as well.
So Nick, just I'm trying to figure out. So where are these RACES folks? Where would they? Where is it? You're anticipating that they're going to be to give the fire and police information or dispatch? How's that work? I mean, do you anticipate that they're going to get phone calls there at where the RACES people are, and they're going to distribute them out to the fire department, or are they going to be going to command centers, or what do you? I don't understand. So.
With a general, I'm talking about a collapse of the communication system, telephones and the internet and radios, no matter where you are here. The shortwave ham would be less affected that because they're individual. They also have this network where they get in touch with each other. When the ground shakes like a good thing and everything kind of shuts down, the electricity goes down, all that, they have their own little backup things, either battery or generator power, and they love to be self-sufficient, even if they're out of their car using the car thing, and they'll communicate amongst themselves and say, "Hey, have you heard anything?" And then they'll get that information together, and they'll more or less dispatch themselves to, a fire station, police station, sheriff's station, to get some word out that they can help out. And if this is already in place, they can have a preset program on how to do that. So they won't have to guess, they'll know. They have a communications tree where they know how to talk to one another on this. It works out.
So does that mean that fire and police will have to have some kind of radio so they could communicate with these people? Then is that how that would work? Or
all I'm saying is, if their radios go dead because there's nothing other than line of sight, but they got to call for help to the county's EOC to ask for resources outside the city and things. That's what these people would be doing. They'd be working on a local EOC, and then, if need be, tagging along with the different authorities, police and fire, providing they could provide video and drive-by surveying of disasters.
so if the city instituted the EOC and they had police and fire there and all the city departments there, and everything went out, and then so one of these guys would be inside the EOC, is that's what we're talking about? He would get information and disseminate it to the other departments and stuff. Is that what the plan would be?
Be a link to some other place that had communications, outside, the regional type thing. But we're talking about a pretty big disaster. I mean, when this when the county's communications go down, they revert to transmitters that are operated by the state, and they do that automatically. But when the state goes down too, because of the towers and big shaking and things, there's some problems there. So this allows you know, a different layer of utilization of communications, and communications, as we all know, in public safety, is absolutely critical. Call for help, call for backup, call for resources, all that. Right? I mean, even lifeguard service, the Marine services get involved in this stuff because they've got to do it, and they have the 800 megahertz system too. Okay. So here's a thing we can do is we can have either a member of the I'd have offers from a member of the ham community to make a presentation, and I've also had the guy that runs the training and the stuff from Orange County, and they're willing to come in and make their presentation, tell us how that communication stuff works and what their backups are. So those things are available to complement what we're doing here. But I think it's very valuable that we at least understand that communications isn't there just because. You know, there's a reason why that's there, and there are backups to, even though it's not fail-safe, none of it is, but at least we have backups for it.
So what's the proposal? I mean, what's the step here?
Well, I'm a committee of one that is making a report on this thing, and one of the things I can do is, there's a lot more questions, is to ask to agendize a presentation from the county and or the local folks on the races to give us more information. And but I think it's important, and we should continue on looking at this thing.
I mean, I was on that Zoom meeting with you, Nick, with the races people, and I mean, I didn't hear anything bad about it. I didn't, think there was anything negative about it. But like the other guys now, I'm not sure how all this would integrate. So if we could get some more information with that, maybe somebody that Captain Manhart could suggest, who does that with the county, does the communications with the county. Maybe we could chat with that person to see how they envision this all coming together. And I think that might give me some clarity on it.
Yeah.
One thing that I noticed when we had talked to the presentation that Nick and I had was that it was very little cost to put these receivers or whatever they are in some of the sites. And that sort of made sense to me if that part of it. But what doesn't make sense still is that I don't know how it's going to mesh with what we have now. And like I said, I've been in an EOC with that before, and I didn't see them actually work out things that when we needed them. So I needed more information on this also to go forward to something like this. Yeah.
Good. Adam, is there a possibility we can agendize or invite these folks in to give more discussion on?
Yeah, that's something I don't think we need a motion for that. I think there's a general consensus from the committee that they'd like to hear an informational presentation. I can make contact with whoever you'd like to hear from first. I know there's a few people you had mentioned talking to. I don't necessarily have a preference, but based on the types of questions that have been coming up, it may be more expedient for the committee to hear from maybe another governmental administrator first to get their input on where the value is
Right.
as far as a government is concerned, before we start talking to the people who
Right.
this because they are the ham radio operator, so to speak.
Well, I think my contact with the county communications, which I got from Ed originally, and he's more than happy to address this, would probably be a good place to start. And then a lot of these questions, because he's familiar with RACES also, because the county has their own RACES system too, their people, and since they're on the inside, they can better address your questions too on it. I'm just trying to break this down so it's not so technical.
Yeah, it's real difficult because, you know, I don't want to create more work for all our agencies now if the you know, make more effort than the whole thing's going to be worth. So I really want to know how it's going to be worth to all of us before we go putting a lot of work on our different agencies, where if it's not going to be compatible, then I don't want to be wasting their time. So I'm not sure how we get around that part.
Okay, yeah, I think we can handle that. Very good. All right, so
Chair Barcuda,
Sure.
it's Rob Capobianco. Just so you know, I'm going to send you an email that shows our policy for our radio failure and the different phases we go through. Just for your observation, I'll send that to you, and you can share it with the rest of the committee if you choose. And then I think probably Ed would probably go to set you up with somebody, and since they're in the sheriff department with OCC communications, but if there's anyone on the fire side, I can get some radio people to discuss whatever you need as well, some experts. And like Ed, I'm not that expert, but let us know what we can do to help you get the information you need, and I'll send you that email as we're speaking.
perfect. And yeah, like I said, this is a committee thing, so I'm just presenting this particular report, and just go to the next step, which is have another presentation. It'll make some more clarified, I think, hopefully. And those backups are always good. The other thing with the backups, you really got to practice those, because if a guy in a patrol car doesn't know that he's got to turn his radio to something else, he's going to be out of communication. So if we don't practice that all the time, it can bite us. We all have experience with that one.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So shall we go to item B, the homeless project update?
Yes. Good. As I mentioned before, there's going to be a homeless outreach coordinator. I keep calling it liaison coordinator, but it's outreach coordinator that's slated to be hired. I think that's going to be a big plus for the city and a good big first step, if you will, towards mitigating homeless. So that was a good movement just in and of itself. But
Good. Any questions for Gary on that? And what will that homeless outreach coordinator do?
well, Adam can probably address that.
So a couple of months ago, the council had a discussion with city staff related to the services provided by CityNet, previously by Mercy House. And these services are designed to provide outreach to the homeless and provide them with whatever opportunities may be available at the time of contact, related to housing services, mental health services, food, and other types of supportive care. The decision from the council was to allocate some some CDBG funds that the city has acquired. Specifically, there were some additional COVID-related funds to allocate some of those funds towards a new in-house outreach, homeless outreach coordinator position. The issues with CityNet was that they were here part-time, and I don't think there was as much success from their work as the city council was hoping for, and that somebody who's working in as a employee of the city is going to have a better opportunity to address the homelessness within the city for a few reasons. One is they are going to be here every day. Two, their scope of work is just within the city. The position itself is going to be based on some similar positions that have seen success in other jurisdictions, and those positions do require a bit of specialized training, experience, and education related to social work and this line of work. So having this person in-house is going to be more familiar with our specific jurisdiction, the specific population of people that need services, and then they will be able to establish those relationships with county and various nonprofit NGO groups that can assist. And they will be working hand in hand with some of our other city staff, whether it be code compliance, the park rangers, the OCSD, homeless liaison officers, and various other groups, but specifically focused on the city.
Okay.
And that position, just so everybody's aware, that position was posted at the last council meeting. They approved the pay grade and range for that position. And so we are about a week from the application period closing, and the city will begin reviewing or finalizing the review of the applications that it receives, and the Human Resources Division will be working on scheduling the interviews, starting with an oral board as soon after the application period ends as possible.
Well, hey, Adam, will there be anybody on those oral boards who have any experience or knowledge regarding the homeless situation in general?
The oral boards are generally made up of people who have direct experience in the line of work of the position being hired for. The Human Resources Division is the one that puts that together, and that's something that they do frequently, is put oral boards together for every conceivable division and program within the city. So they will know who to attempt to acquire for these types of oral boards. But yes, they will be people that have experience dealing with the issues at hand.
Oh, very good.
Okay, any other questions? No? Go to C, legislation review project updates. Anything on that, Gary?
Well, there's lots of legislation being proposed. Nothing's really been passed. I mean, it's all up in the proposals stage, so it's almost impossible to figure out what's going to pass, and what it's going to look like once it passes. So, I mean, a lot of trailers, all that kind of stuff happens in bills. So yeah, keep your eye on what Congress is looking at doing, because if they're going to be funneling money to the states like it's anticipated they will, and they have proposed in this spending bill, It will be interesting to see how the state distributes that money out. It's supposed for cities and counties in the state, not just to do with COVID. So there's not going to be a lot of restrictions on it. So it'll be interesting to see what money is available.
Got it. Good. All right, reports from the committee members. Let's go for Ed on police services.
I'll keep it short, but I was very, very happy today. The city had a groundbreaking ceremony for our station downstairs, even though construction began at the beginning of February. So the second floor here at City Hall is almost completely demoed. I believe there's only another week or two. And it's moving along fantastic. And the staff is extremely excited here. The goal is to get us in the building in June. And everything is on track for that. And the city council members were here, and the city had a nice tour of showing us all the plans that we've come up with on our side, and we work together with Gensler, the architectural firm, and things are moving forward. So hopefully at the beginning of summer, San Clemente Police Services will be out of this building permanently, and that will put smiles on all of our faces. So I am very fortunate and very happy for the city for moving forward. It's been a long time due. It's been kind of painful, but at least we are absolutely seeing progress, and I'm very thankful for that. So.
Good job. Good job.
Captain Manhart, I would like to say on behalf of the committee, because I think I would speak for most of us, is if you can pass it along. We were very happy that Sheriff Barnes basically fought the courts on the release of the prisoners and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a huge stand up on the behalf of all communities. So thank you.
I'll pass it along.
Good job. Any other questions for Ed? Okay, fire services, Rod.
Yeah, so a couple of quick things. We just went back for final inspection on the new ladder truck that'll be going to Station 59. That should be, the plan is it should be in California within the next 3 to 4 weeks. And then it takes about 4 or 5 weeks for us to put in our radios and do all of our outfitting. So that'll be done at our headquarters. So hopefully by spring, we should see a new truck 59, which would be a great thing. Our COVID numbers have been great. We still have nobody out with COVID in our organization, and it's been that way for a little over a week. When you think of not too long ago, a month and a half ago, I think we had 90 people off at one point. So things are much better. And our fire pods and vaccinating our fire department has pretty much been completed. We have some outstanding still for the people that have voluntarily chosen to take it. And then I still remain heavily involved with the incident management team, helping with the vaccination process and trying to get that up and running. One of the big things I've been working on is some of the mobile pod concept and what that looks like, putting that together. And so we're starting to cycle off and coming back to our normal full-time jobs, but things are progressing well in the vaccination piece as well. And available for any questions if you have anything.
I have my hand raised over here, so
that's very polite. I'm impressed.
Is that what that is?
yeah. Just fun to use. I have 2 questions about what you just said. One on the ladder truck. Is it a 100-foot aerial? What type of, or is it a quint, or what is it?
So it's all of ours are quints. All of our ladder trucks we carry, and for the non-fire people, we carry water hose so that, like at Station 59, since it's a standalone truck company, it's a paramedic truck that carries water, so it's a little bit of everything. It's 100-foot rear mount, and it's made by a company or a manufacturer called KME, and they're based out of Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Who's driving it out?
They bring it out for us.
Oh,
In a bouncing fire truck.
one of your own guys, out there joyriding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did used to have retired guys go pick them up and drive them out and drive them back and stuff.
Are you off?
But-
Are you offering?
No, most of them never didn't do it
They
twice.
all-
I can tell you that.
I'll go.
Nobody did it twice though.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, sounds real romantic. One of those kind of things, but.
Yes.
Part was there was a Wall Street Journal article that indicated that, and it specified Orange County Fire only had a 56% vaccination rate amongst its crew. Is that correct?
That's what we're seeing amongst most fire departments. I think kind of the police departments have been something similar. There's some higher, some lower, but those numbers are accurate. There's a lot of people that are very hesitant to get it. There's a lot of people that had COVID and are concerned about some symptoms. So I can tell you, I jumped on it the first chance I had, but I think we represent the rest of society with kind of a similar average of people that are still a little worried or want a little bit more time to take a look at it. Being up here, working underneath the HCA and listening to Dr. today, I had no hesitation with taking it. And my second dose, I felt a little bit off for about 12 hours. But I have to admit, I'm happy to have had the opportunity to take it. But your numbers are correct.
Okay.
I think LA County was something maybe a little bit higher, but not much, about 60, something like that. Don't quote me on that.
I think
but
they're like 64%.
numbers everywhere. Yeah.
Crazy. I've got just a question that's tangential to fire services on our contract with the ambulance service. Do they report stats at all to the city?
Yes, they do. And I don't know if Adam, if you have some information on that. Their contract is directly with the city, not through us at all.
Right.
And I don't know exactly that process and how those stats are delivered.
Yeah, Adam, do you have any understanding of types of calls or any of the stats that come off the ambulance service?
I'm not directly familiar with that, but any information that I can pull together, I'd be more than happy to provide. Is that something you'd like to see with the review data, or just as a separate standalone?
Well, I don't want to make a big thing out of it, but I'm looking at, we contract for 2 full-time ambulances, and what do we get for that? How many calls do they get? How many ALS versus BLS calls? And what's the contracted response time? Those type of things.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's available. I would assume information that related to those types of data would be available, but I don't know. So let me do some research, and I will provide whatever I can to the committee as soon as possible.
Yeah, it may dovetail into the fire responses too with the paramedics and things. Be good. Thank you. Okay, marine safety. Rod, finally. We're looking at your background there and we're saying, hey, how do we get that,
Well, as you can tell, if you look in the background, you can see how nice it is. I hope everyone's enjoying the nice weather. We know that we're in February right now, but the water temperature tells us that we are. It's starting off at 56, and right now it's 58. I'll keep it brief. We had a successful Lifeguard Tryouts this past Sunday. We had a lot of local talent come down, and we ended up 20 of the participants passed both Fiscal events, and we interviewed the top 18 and just made announcements that we're taking the top 13 into our rookie training academy. So we'll start that the last weekend in March, and we go 5 consecutive weekends, and they'll have 100+ hours of training, and you'll see some new faces out in the towers this summer. We won't hire all 13, but we'll hire the top candidates out of at the conclusion of the training. We are gearing up for the junior lifeguard program for this summer. Last summer we did not have it, like a lot of other agencies. So we're happy about that, to get the kids back on the beach and provide them beach safety tips and teach them lifeguarding and first aid. So we have, for new students, they have to do a swim test, 100 yards in under 2 minutes. So we have 8 swim tests. First 6 are in March. They start March 13th, and we have a couple in April. So we're pretty excited about having the JGs back. And also, as you can tell with the weather, we're about 2 weeks away from spring break happening for us down here. So you can start seeing some towers on weekends opening up. Usually Arizona kicks off our spring break. It's not just a week of spring break down here. It's a month to a month and a half with all the out-of-staters that come in. So usually Arizona will be here probably within a couple weeks. Utah and the other states, Capital Unified School District, their spring break is, I believe, the first week in April. So things are going to start turning around here for us. And that's it for me. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask.
I've got one. Has COVID affected any of your guards or any of your personnel?
Yeah, we've, from time to time, nothing like what Rob Bianco has mentioned, or for the Sheriff's Department. Been pretty good. I think not running the junior lifeguards definitely helped with that. So we had a surplus of guards that were instructors to backfill. So, we've been pretty good. So we've been fortunate.
Super.
Hey, how do you, like for, like you say, spring break or Memorial Day, do you bring back seasonal guards from last year to backfill in, since you haven't trained new ones?
Yeah, so there's a hiring list, and so as work becomes available, the more senior guards of the seasonals will get that work if they're available. In fact, we have what we call recurrent training coming up March 6th and 7th, and they'll go through 20 hours of training to get recertified for the upcoming year.
All right. Cool, thanks.
Heck of a job, let me tell you. Any other questions for our buddies here? Okay. All right. I think I've put everything out on the line here with my reports and stuff. So I'm going to pass it on to our committee members. Joe, do you have anything on your?
Yes, I think Adam has a overlay of the Neighborhood Watch program.
Yeah, as far as those maps, I saw the communications with IT. Did you want me to put one of those maps up?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
If you could.
Let me find it.
So Rick and I met with Justin at the city hall. And I know we first started out, we told you guys we were going to have something like 12 districts or 13 districts. But when we started getting a list in of the neighborhoods and stuff, we said, boy, we're going to have to dumb this down a little bit, because we had one area called the Coast, and it just happened that Shore Cliffs Terrace was in the Coast, and Shore Cliffs was another one of our areas. So we kind of dumbed it down a little bit, and we made it into some areas, and we'll show it to you right as he puts this up.
Okay.
Good.
So this is
the correct map.
Yeah, so this is the new area, and so it goes as you look at, it says northwest, west, and southwest. And we got northeast, east, and southeast. So that made it a lot easier for us. And then, of course, Talega is out there. And so that was our goal this month, was to get all the HOAs and all the areas designed. So that's going to be our basic areas. And we're going to start working on who has a watch group now. And we're working with Lisa at the OSCD, or the Orange County Sheriffs. and she's helping us come up with a list of emails and numbers. So our next month, we're going to try and contact people who's still interested in what areas they want. And then we'll start taking one area at a time and taking the parts of the city that have HOAs and the ones that don't, and then trying to create different areas. So as we try to organize this whole thing, that's our plan. And so next month, we're going to try to have a list of the ones that were out. And we're going to try and meet a staff member that Adam's going to designate to us that could help us get emails out or letters out and things that we could finally try and find who's out interested in the program. So that's about where we are with that. You have anything else, Rick?
No, and one of the big things too is for getting the word out is I think we'll go on social media, Facebook pages, neighborhood links. I'm hoping to get maybe Sean Raimundo to maybe put a little blurb in the San Clemente Times, asking people if they're already in a watch, let us know. If they're interested in starting a new watch, let us know so we can start getting a database of people that are already in watches and that want to be involved in creating them.
It's a good job you guys are doing.
Yeah, Justin at the city was a ton of help to us, just a ton of help.
Wonderful.
But there's another thing we had talked about also where you see west, downtown is also in that area. And we had thought about making that into its own area, but in the downtown area, there are a lot of residents also. So we're going to have to decide how we're going to treat downtown later and also our industrial areas too. So that's going to be some more things we're going to have to think about. So that's about it.
Now, would the Chamber of Commerce have anything that they would be involved in there?
That's a real good question. And Rick had brought that up. So we'll be looking into that, but we're trying to take one piece of a puzzle at a time. And there's a lot of moving parts here, like in all the programs we're doing. So
good job. Yeah, it's a tremendous job.
Thanks.
You can kill it, Adam.
Looked like a lot of work there. Okay, good. Okay, Rick, do you have anything?
No, real good meeting. We got over a lot of stuff. Hopefully we won't have this much material with all of them, but I'm going to defer my time to Gary. He has a couple of things he wanted to bring up that we talked about that I agree with. And so I'm going to defer to Gary.
Gary, you're on.
Thank you. And the gentleman, how they usually say it, the gentleman, whatever.
Gotcha.
We spoke about bike safety here over the last few months. Seems to be a focus of the city council. And these are just three different items that I had thought of regarding bike safety. And we can either discuss them now briefly and then go into them. If we say, yes, let's look into them at the next meeting, then we can do that. Because I know we're kind of long right now on our meeting. But first item is on bicycles on sidewalks. And I think it's something we should address and forward a recommendation to the city council on how we feel about that. So again, we can introduce that as unfinished business on next meeting. If you guys like I said, I know we're getting kind of long here. The second item is on, it's basically bike safety. And one of the big concerns was that electric bikes riding in close to people. Well, one of the things I've observed with the bikes, a lot of bikes that we have here, not just electric bikes, but all bikes, is a lot of them have surf racks in our city. And these surf racks can extend out from the bike almost 2 feet, sometimes 2.5 feet. And when they have the surf rack on the bike, often the surfers will have the fin facing outward. So now you're extending it even more outward, a dangerous thing coming by. I've been buzzed several times by these folks coming by on their bikes like that. And I think maybe, again, it's something to discuss if maybe we should recommend to city council that we have a city code here that requires that at least those fins are turned inward or removed off the surfboards when they're transporting them back and forth. And these last two items I'm going to give you here, I'm not suggesting that I think the sheriffs are going to be out there, enforcing this, trying to find, who's doing what or whatever. But it can be an area that if they saw something or an incident occurred, we can find fault with it because it would be a violation of the city code. The last one I was thinking of is in California, there's a requirement that vehicles have to give a 3-foot window to bicyclists as they come by. And I was thinking, why wouldn't we make that same requirement on bicyclists with pedestrians? Because that seems to be one of the great fears on the bike trail, is that the bicycles are coming too close to people and we're going to have an accident. Again, I'm not looking for this to say, oh, this is going to be an enforcement tool, something like that. What I'm looking at is that it would be a tool to be used for bicyclists to learn that, hey, we can't come close to pedestrians. And also, if there were an incident, then suddenly we would have something to fall back on to say, well, you violated this. You're technically supposed to be 3 feet from them. So just those three things. And like I said, we can discuss them in more detail next meeting, or if you guys want, we can discuss them now. So
I'd like to suggest we agendize it, since we only need 2 people to put something on the agenda, I think, for next meeting. And maybe Gary and I could get together and put together a little presentation at that time. That's how I would suggest we do it, that we agendize it and speak to it next time.
okay, fair enough.
If I could just make one suggestion here. The committee's work is determined through specific council direction or approval of the work plan projects. And I'm not sure off the top of my head where this falls into that direction. So as part of any agendized item, I would look at where the direction is coming from to begin to look at we'll call them extracurricular items outside of an established work plan or specific council direction.
Without the work plan in front of me, I thought there was some, for better use of terms, ambiguous areas about recommendations of the council about items that would reflect on public safety without being specific.
There are to some extent, but it just may be worth reviewing the work plan and providing a little bit of background on which part of the work plan you're referencing when you're discussing this issue.
Because this isn't, it could be considered specific to e-bikes. Well, of course, they've already had a recommendation, but they asked us to work on that. But aside from that, how many council members would you need to direct us to do this?
Well, technically, any direction from council would require at least 3. But what I'm saying is, the reason we have a work plan is to focus the energies of committees and commissions into those items that the council has approved for your time to be spent on. And when we're looking at other things that may impact public safety, not that it's not important, I just want to make sure that we're keeping our eye on the fact that it's been pretty clearly established that the council is interested in having our committees focus on specific projects rather than projects that are identified in the course of directed work.
Could you just ask somebody for clarification on the fact, like I say, they sent it to us regarding the e-bikes and different things and see, so we should never look at things as they come up again regarding that, or things that expand from that original situation. I'm not saying it does. I'm just wondering.
I can. What I'd like to do is have a discussion about the work of the committee and related to the work plan, related to council direction. There's a lot of things about public safety that the public safety could talk about. The reason we have a work plan is to focus the work of the committee somewhat. I'm not saying that doesn't give the committee a little breathing room. I just want to make sure that we're following in line with council's overall direction for the committee. So let me do a little bit of background on that. You know, the committee can make a motion for whatever it feels like it would like to discuss at a future meeting. And if you'd like to do that for this, I'm more than happy to do that. Take that roll call. Maybe at that meeting, I can provide a little bit more background on where the energies should be focused if this is not entirely supported by council.
Well, maybe we could just move to put it on the agenda, and if you have some communication in the meantime where not appropriate, then when it comes up on the agenda next time, we can just table it for the future or get rid of it completely.
I like that direction.
Okay.
Suggestion, Rick.
Gary, you good with that?
Yeah, it's a good suggestion on Rick's part.
Yeah, and our thing is to be advisory to the city council. So, you know, we're trying to give them some advice. Whether they take it or not, something else. Yeah. Okay, staff. Adam, you're up.
Before we move on to me, would the committee like to make a motion to put this on the agenda as a specific item?
I mean, I'll make that motion. Is it like the city council where on these committees, you just need 2 people to put something on the agenda? Do we work different?
You know, I haven't heard that that applies to the committee. But
well then
it maybe doesn't need to be as formal, you know, if there's a motion. Yeah, if there's a motion and then we just have everybody raises their hands for the yay.
I move that we put Gary's 3 items on the next agenda.
All right. That's clear.
That works.
That.
Okay.
Okay.
And I guess we could make a resolution to the city council with what we'd like to have them at least acknowledge. Okay.
Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to take some notes here. Okay. Let's see. For staff, as I had mentioned, I will do an update on code compliance in the future. Since I'm going to be out next month, it would be at least 2 months away. By that time, I'll probably have a more robust update on the homeless outreach coordinator position as well. And I'll probably also have a little bit more to say about the park rangers. We're going through the budget cycle right now, and there's always things that may change or potentially enhance the services that we're providing right now. As I mentioned in the park ranger update, in the past, staff had been actively following council's direction to provide additional enforcement authority for the park rangers. That work is far from done. The type of work that we're taking on right now really requires some improvements to the positions and the pay of these staff. They're for all intents and purposes, they're still at the same level as they were as a park monitor, and all they did then was really just monitor things. They weren't actively involved in dealing with some of the more complained about impacts in terms of about how public space is used, for example. So hopefully there will be more to come on that. I will provide the information, the documents, and the agenda for next week's meeting as soon as I can, as soon as possible ahead of the next meeting. And like I said, there will probably be somebody else sitting in. As those words came out of my mouth, I want to think about that just a little bit more. Since everything's on Zoom, it's not out of the question that I still may be here for the next meeting. So with that, those are my updates for this meeting.
Great.
Okay. Well, I move that we adjourn to the next regular Public Safety Committee meeting to occur on 4/23/2021 at 1500 hours.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion by Leffler, second by Percuda. So committee member Leffler,
Aye.
committee member Walsh,
Aye.
vice chair Janis,
Aye.
and chair Percuda.
Aye.
All right. Thank you all very much. That concludes our meeting for today.
Gentlemen,
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
thanks. All right.